Welcome back to my channel, guys, and greetings from Orlando, Florida. This is just going to be a rant video. I might piss off some people, I guess to be determined, but I came here for one day just to go to Disney World, which I'll go into the reasoning behind that in a second. And last night when I came back from the park, I was like, I can't be the only person who feels this way. You know, what are the other people of the world thinking? And I mostly saw overwhelming positive feedback. So I'm like, is it just me? Let's talk about it. So the reason I came to Disney World here in Orlando, Florida, is that I had some extra vacation days that I had to use up before end of year. I'm filming this in December at the time of this video. And then once I decided which days I would take off, I thought I should go to Orlando, Florida, to an amusement park one of these days that I'm off, because in my mind, I thought, who's gonna go to an amusement park on a random weekday in December, a few weeks before the holidays, right? Like, if somebody's gonna go to Disney during December, it's probably gonna be Christmas week or New Year's week, or maybe Thanksgiving week in November, because that's when people take time off, right? But like a random day in early December, who's gonna do that? I was wrong. The park was still very crowded. But anyway, so that was my mindset. And I think I've only been to Orlando once since I moved to Miami, which is 3 hours away by train. So I thought this is perfect. I'll go to a park, have a day by myself, do something different. And I've been to Universal Studios several times throughout life. So I figured maybe I should go to Disney. But then my next thought was, Disney's probably too like kiddie, the rides and stuff. Like, do they have real rides for adults such as myself seeking an adrenaline rush? And my friend who loves theme parks was like, no, you should try Disney if you've never been. They do have some cool rides, and some of the settings, you know, like the towns you walk through, the neighborhoods are well done, and it's cool. It's like it's an experience. Like, you have to go to Disney at some point. And I don't know that I've actually ever been to this specific Disney in Orlando. I know as a kid I went to some Disney somewhere, but I don't remember where. So I thought, you know what? My friend is right. It's an experience. I'll just go to Disney. So I get my ticket for Disney World. I decided to go to Magic Kingdom. Even the selection was a process, because I didn't realize there's Epcot, there's Animal Kingdom, there's Magic Kingdom, there's Disney Springs, there's a gazillion options, which is really, in retrospect, was the first sign that this was going to be a capitalist journey for me. A journey through the throes of consumerism. So I settled on Magic Kingdom because that's sort of like the Disney that you think of, with the castle and the Disney story-based rides and stuff like that. So we'll go with that one. So showing up to Disney, right? I took an Uber. The Uber got lost and confused on the way, which I don't blame him, because there's so many separate entrances for like Epcot versus Animal Kingdom versus Magic Kingdom. So he actually left me where he wasn't supposed to, apparently, and he dropped me off in a parking lot where people who drive to Disney park. So from there, we had to take a tram to the actual entrance. But at this point, I'm like, it's fine. I can take a tram. We get to the entrance. Turns out that's not really the entrance. That's just like the gate to the entire Disney compound. From there, we had to take the monorail. So now I'm on another train. So I'm not even in the park yet, and I've already waited in lines twice to get on a fake ride, AKA transportation, to the actual park. So now we're in Disney, and I see the castle, and I'm like, all right, this is cool, this is cool. This is like that avenue that you always see in movies, and you know, it's like an iconic view, right? First stop I make, I see this cool mountain looking ride with these cascading waters, and I'm like, that one. I want to start with that one. Turns out it's, I guess, the newest ride in the park. It's based on the Princess and the Frog movie that came out, like a decade ago maybe, all about like New Orleans culture, Louisiana culture. So the ride is supposed to be a bayou adventure. So I'm excited. It's my first ride at Disney, and they stop me. And they're like, can we see your pass or whatever? I'm like, okay. And then it leads to this whole ordeal of them asking me questions about like, well, did you get this kind of ticket or that kind of ticket? And it's like, I don't know, 9 in the morning. I just, I didn't mean to get snappy, but I think I literally went, I just bought a normal ticket. Like, it's not complicated for me. I'm not a Disney expert. I just bought a regular ticket. And they go, oh, yeah, you can't ride this ride with a regular ticket. You have to have a blah, 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 like a premium ticket, or you have to do the virtual queue, or they like mentioned all these things that I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. All right, fine. So I leave. And as I'm leaving, I'm like, that's pretty fucked up that you could spend about $200 on a ticket, a regular ticket, but there are rides that are not accessible to you. Like, that doesn't sound right to me. I can understand if the wait time is insane, like it's 2 hours because it's the new cool ride, but to not even give you the option, because then I checked the app, they have an app. That's a whole other thing. There's a whole game plan. That's when I learned there's a whole game plan with Disney. You're supposed to use the app, and the app will tell you if you can skip the line for that specific ride as long as you pay up. So there's a whole system behind this, but that ride, there were no options. I can't even wait if I want to, wait 2 hours. I am not allowed to ride that ride. I think that's insane. I mean, I went by myself. I don't have kids. I live 3 hours away. I'm not like a huge Disney fanatic, but I was just thinking, imagine the people, especially if they don't speak English very well, who are traveling from other countries and they can't wait to go to Disney, and they've been doing research on this ride, and like they saw videos on YouTube, and then you show up and they're like, oh, you just bought a regular ticket? You can't ride this ride. So these moments, to be honest, were kind of like a sign of what was to come the entire day. And so when I checked out the app, I did realize that all the rides that of course I wanted to ride had a crazy wait time. I hate waiting in lines. So you can pay up, but again, some of them you just don't have the option. And I think that's because the park has some system to designate when the skip the line features are sold out, basically. Like, there's too many people who've paid for that, and so they don't want to ruin those people's experiences too. Which makes me think, okay, that's cool that Disney has a system in place for this, but to make sure that if you're paying way more, you're not going to get screwed and still be waiting more than 10 minutes or something for a ride. But that makes me think they must have a huge overpopulation, like a crowd issue, to even have to come up with a system like that. And I did feel that the park was quite crowded for a regular weekday, a few weeks before holidays, not even like in the time period. I specifically avoided coming, let's say December 20th or December 18th, thinking like, oh, that might be too close to the window of Christmas, so maybe people take off the whole week. I thought I was being strategic, so it just makes me think, how many more people are there on a weekend, on a holiday, or holiday adjacent? So basically in the app, you see the wait time of each ride. And for some of the rides, you can select the skip the line feature, which you have to pay up for, of course. So you can select it just for that ride, or you do it for multiple rides at once. So it's kind of like a debit account. You have 3 rides that you can choose from, and then for those you can skip the line. While I think this is an interesting system, and they also do it by time period. So like you have to redeem it between these times, and then this other ride between these times. And of course they're doing all of this because they want to make sure that the wait time then isn't unpleasant for people who are paying up. Like, there's a maximum number of people they'll allow to do that. But then what happens is, in my case at least, you're glued to your phone the whole time you're at Disney, because you're like stressing out about, all right, this ride, I can only go during this period, but it's at the other end of the park. And it becomes a whole, like, I guess if you're really into that, maybe it turns into a game. For me, I found it annoying. More annoying though was that, like an idiot, I ended up purchasing one of the three for deals where like I can select 3 rides, and none of the rides that I actually wanted to ride were on the list of available rides. So my impression was that those rides had already sold out of the skip the line feature, which again made me realize, okay, this was my first time. I guess people who do Disney consistently, who love Disney, they have a strategy with this, they know what to do. But what about people like me who Like, I'm an amateur. I'm just here. I just want to enjoy the fucking park. And then you realize you're supposed to be a part of this whole strategy to actually enjoy yourself and not have to wait an insane amount of time. And I just can't imagine if you're there with little kids and visiting from another country and maybe you don't speak English that well, then now you have to navigate all this shit. Like, it's not fun. It's a fucking headache. There were some rides, of course, that were cool and some rides that were cute in terms of the visuals. Like, I enjoyed the Little Mermaid ride or the Peter Pan ride. I mean, those aren't rides that you're just gonna keep, jumping on while you're there. But it's like cute to see those Disney movies from your childhood come to life. But for like a few minutes of that versus the amount of time you're waiting and having to navigate this app all of a sudden, but also just the crowd. So many people, so many kids, including screaming kids who are not happy to be at Disney either. So many strollers. And I have to say I found the crowd kind of depressing as well. It's the same sort of crowd that goes to Vegas. A lot of people who don't seem well, like physically, they're not, they don't seem totally well, like healthy, but also like mentally, developmentally. So the irony of the juxtaposition of the brand of Disney, right? Where dreams come true, right? Whatever the tagline is, versus the crowd, which I found very demoralizing. It was a weird fucking experience. I felt like I was in a Twilight Zone, and it showed me how out of the loop I am as well, that I didn't know Disney was not really how it's pictured in movies and all that. And, some of this I think these are parks that have run their course. I was reading that some of the iconic rides there have been open since the 80s. And you can tell that a lot of the experience is it needs a revamp. Like, there was one ride, was it the Caribbean, Pirates of the Caribbean, which that movie came out in the early 2000s, right? So it's not that old. But, you see moving levers behind some of the robots. And it's just like a basic attention to detail that I'm like, at Universal, they have this kind of down packed, I feel. So it just made me wonder, is Disney one of those things that has run its course in American society and that the public has sort of woken up to like, it's not that great? Or is it just me being a cynic? Because clearly there were so many people there that maybe I'm the outsider. But I do know that Disney has been struggling as a company since the pandemic. Naturally, all the parks closed during the pandemic, and then they launched Disney Plus. Was it during the pandemic that they launched Disney Plus? Disney Plus has not really taken off. There's so many other streaming companies to compete with. So as I'm sitting at this cafe at Disney eating this gross processed meal, and yes, I know theme parks aren't known for 5-star cuisine, but this was like particularly, and I had to wait for it, of course, like everything else at the park. It took forever just to have a shitty burger. But I was sitting there thinking, like, has Disney culturally just run its course? And maybe I'm out of the loop. Clearly there were a billion people there. But I can't help but feel it was one of those things where people are conditioned to believe in the hype of Disney in the same way that people are conditioned to believe in the hype of Hollywood or dare I say, the American dream as well. And then you live it and you're like, oh, it's not at all what was like sold to me. And I just wondered how many other people were there at the park who are thinking in their head like, okay, I did this once, never again. And what's funny is I don't have this same experience with Universal, and maybe I would need to go to Universal by myself, which I've never done. So maybe it's also different when you're by yourself. You're more sort of analytical and like introspective and reflective. But Universal to me seems way more modern, advanced. You don't see the same like blubbers with technology of the rides that I did at Disney. Okay, this video's long enough. End of rant. Tell me in the comments what you guys think. Curious to hear. See you next time.